Hello, welcome to the live stream. If you're just joining us now, thank you for taking the time. And if you're catching this on a replay, thank you so much for catching this video. Very excited to welcome the one and only Sarge from Prepping with Sarge. So just quickly here, I noticed Harvey's here in the chat, as well as Sugar in the Attic Homestead. Good to see you guys. So Sarge is here, and he has 30 years of prepping experience. He's a martial artist. I'm noticing a little bit of.
Yeah, I don't think it's me. I don't have a window open or anything like that.
Yeah. There's no other YouTube.
It's me. I don't have this.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, we'll see if that's any better. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? That sounds good. So Sarge is a martial artist. He's been gardening for 40 years. He is also an accidental storm chaser, which I need to know more about. And the other thing is he is about to hit a very large milestone on YouTube. So if you are listening to this and you want to be part of that, and if you happen to not be subscribed, please go over and hit that subscribe button, because there are going to be giveaways. So not that we also don't want to see your amazing content, but there's the giveaways. And then there's also a really, really good Instagram, like a massive major Instagram account. So also check that out. So the links to both of those are below the video. So yeah, welcome Sarge. And if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your channel?
Thank you so much. I think I cleared up the echo. It was on my end. I think we're good now. Has it stopped on your end?
Oh, it sounds fantastic. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, good. Sorry about that to everybody. So yeah, just to start out, so I've been doing the YouTube thing for about 2 years. If you look at my channel, it actually looks older than that, but I really hadn't been producing any content until 2020. I got started right before the pandemic, but I've been prepping for most of my life. I grew up in the Boy Scouts, and my dad was an 82nd Airborne, so he taught me a lot of stuff. My mom was a gardener, so she taught me a lot of stuff, and I just kind of grew up with it. I'm also a licensed mental health therapist by trade, and so that comes into some of the content that I do. As Van said, I do have, I'm approaching 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. We will be doing some giveaways on that sometime after I hit 2,000, so just kind of stay tuned. In fact, I was thinking today as I was working on some stuff for my channel, like I got to start putting together what I'm going to do for my giveaways. So that information will be coming. I am on Instagram too as prepping_with_Sarge. I do, a little bit of content on there every day. So sometimes there's crossover, but sometimes there's different stuff. So you might see some stuff on YouTube that you don't see on Instagram. You might see some stuff on Instagram that you don't see on YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome. So what got you into prepping?
Well, it started with as a kid. I really liked, my mom showed me about gardening and really enjoyed that. I've told some of the stories before, but I think I was probably about 4 years old. I was lucky enough that I grew up in a really nice neighborhood, and so we had a lot of like woods around that we could explore. So I just loved playing in the woods, and we, building forts out of sticks and all this kind of stuff. So it's just kind of a natural thing to go from that to like into Boy Scouts and wilderness survival, things like that. But I think I was about 4 when my mom started teaching me about gardening, and really got me into I remember her sitting me down and saying, okay, we're going to grow a garden. What do you want to grow? And I was living in Massachusetts at the time, and she said, pick whatever you want. So I said peanuts. Well, peanuts don't really grow well in Massachusetts, but she didn't discourage me. She just said, okay, we're gonna try it, because it was a learning experience, right? Yeah. And so she let me do other stuff in the garden, things like that. But when the peanuts didn't grow, it was an opportunity to explain that certain things will grow in some places, and things will grow don't grow there. So I have a lot of good memories of that. She was big into her flower gardening, so I've picked up a little bit of that. but she was much, much better at it than I am. And we just have some cool stories. My mom's passed away. I have some cool memories from those days. And, like I remember she would say, okay, I want you to go out and water my flowers. And then if you've ever watered flowers with like a handheld sprinkler, they'll kind of like move with it. And she would tell me that was the flowers saying thank you to me. So
Oh,
yeah, so I really kind of took to that. I've always liked learning about plants and playing with them, and a lot of my stuff on my videos is about that kind of thing. And my dad being an airborne ranger, I'm sorry, airborne 82nd Airborne, not airborne ranger. That's a different thing. He was stationed in Alaska and did a lot of cold weather survival training and things like that. So he taught me a lot about that. And then, just as I went along, started picking up other things, reading different books. Later on, I got into Jack Spirko's podcast. If you've ever listened to him, he's really cool. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, why am I not doing something with this? Why am I not doing a podcast or YouTube channel or whatever? And
yeah.
here we are.
So if you had to describe the focus of your channel, what types of things do you like to cover, even though I know the answer because I watch your channel devoutly, but for anyone who might not have seen it?
So I talk about all things preparedness and survival, but I do specialize a little bit with food self-sufficiency and financial preparedness. Will probably be the two topics that I talk about the most. And I can definitely take some questions if people have stuff about that. I see some friends here in the chat. If people have any questions they want to throw out about that, we'll probably get into financial preparedness and food self-sufficiency. And I also throw in, because of my primary trade being a licensed therapist, I'll talk about mental health, how to manage panic during emergencies, how to help people in your group that may not be doing too well in the middle or in the aftermath of an emergency. So for example, if so you're in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, just outside of there, yeah.
So you all don't have any hurricanes, right?
No, but we are a high earthquake risk here.
So
But
you have
no,
earthquakes, right? Okay.
yeah, but we don't. No hurricanes, no.
Yeah. So actually, I mean, I've lived through a few earthquakes. I've never felt them because they've been so small. My wife has. She the last time that we had a couple here, because we had a few in the past year, she said, "Did you feel that?" And I'm like, "No, what?" And she's like, "The house just like went like that."
Yeah.
And I didn't even notice it. And turned out she was right. It was a small earthquake, but she was right. I did hear it. Like, it sounded like a loud crack. We both heard it, and which I can only assume is the mantle of the earth cracking. It's a pretty scary thing.
Yes.
And our dog sensed it before we heard it and before she felt it. That was the most interesting part. Is like the dog was sleeping and then all of a sudden went like, whoosh. And we're like, "You okay?" And then it was like we heard the crack, and then my wife said, "Did you feel that?" So it was like all within a few seconds, but the dog got it before anybody else.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Do you
really
have dogs?
no.
No. Okay.
I mean, grew up with dogs and have had dogs, but at this present moment, because we've, been traveling, and there's been some international work and stuff. It's more of a logistics reason, but there's gonna be another dog soon, I think.
Excellent.
Hey, it looks like there's so many things I want to ask you, and so many things I think people want to ask you. So, of course, please feel free to drop those questions. And it looks like Sugar in the Attic Homestead has one about dewberries. Have you ever grown dewberries?
I don't grow dewberries, but they're pretty abundant here, and I've done a few videos on them. They grow wild here in South Carolina, so I have some that do grow on the property. I did not put them there. They just kind of came along naturally, and some of the trails that I go on are loaded with them. So dewberries, for those people who are not familiar with them, are a relative of blackberry. And blackberry probably got domesticated from dewberries. They're very, very thorny, more thorny than your typical like blackberry that you would buy at your nursery or Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you're getting your plants. They're more thorny than that, and the berries are smaller. And but it's basically the same thing that the blackberries that you're buying to plant on your property have been domesticated to be bigger, more juicy, and less thorny. And that's just through selective breeding. They like acidic soil if you are growing them, and I know that. And they're pretty low maintenance. Like they'll grow and grow and grow. So if anything, if you are trying to grow them, you might need to just kind of manage your space around there. And you can use them any way you would for like any kind of just the same way you would for blackberries. You can put them in pancakes. You can make jam. You can eat them, just fresh. Yeah, probably do muffins with them.
That sounds good. And I just wanted to mention, it looks like Lily is here. Good to see you. Heroic Prepper. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to be hanging out later this week, so that's going to be fun. Nene's here. Abitibi, what's happening? And the Titan Preparedness channel, we were just talking about you before this, so the three of us, we need to talk. And it sounds like Sarge has done one of your challenges, so that's pretty exciting. And Eric's here. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. And yeah, so there was a question up here from Abitibi. Are you aware that a lot of stores selling food items are either straight out of stock or back order on most products, or prices have gone up by a lot?
Definitely. My wife is a baker, and we are having to make some difficult choices with that because we need to be able to get the products that like flour is a big one that's a concern right now, especially with what's going on in Ukraine, because we do, believe it or not, the United States does import a lot of flour. A lot of wheat comes from Russia and Ukraine, and so that's a concern for us. We have stocked up as much as we can safely store. The thing with flour is if you're storing it in its already processed form, like we buy all-purpose flour, it's really only good for 6 months or so. So we can only store so much, and then you have to, just hope that supply chain gets replenished, unless you're going to be grinding your own, which I don't really have the space to be doing that. What we are seeing is that, so I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Like my friend Titan Preparedness, what we're seeing is that certain things are available some week, and then you may not be, that shelf might be empty, or you can get a substitute. Like generally speaking, they may not. If I just use flour as an example, we may not be able to get our preferred brand of flour right now, but we've still been able to get flour. Prices are higher. Because she's running the baking thing, she has access to restaurant supply stores and stuff like that, so that allows us some flexibility, but it's definitely a concern.
That's a pretty good end to have.
Yeah.
So, keeping on the topic of food, you do so many videos about foraging, and they're very educational and very helpful. And how would you recommend someone new to approach that topic?
So I started with that probably with Boy Scouts. We did like the classes for wilderness survival, and part of that was like you had to learn three wild edibles in your area, right? 3 common ones. And that's usually what I recommend to people when they start out. Like I've got, I think, over 75 foraging videos up now. And even like as much as I do it, I don't like, if you said, oh, do you remember this plant? And I might have even done a video on it. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's edible, but I have to go back and think or do some research again to remember like what it does for you, like what vitamins might be in there, and is it good for a certain part of your body and that kind of thing. So start small. I try to tell people to pick five or 3 of your most common edibles in your area, and just get really, really good at spotting those. So like when you see it, it, and you have a pretty good idea of how you could cook it or eat it, if you can eat it raw or not, what part of your body it's good for. If you get good at 3 or 5, then try to add a couple more on. But definitely start with like some of the most common ones, because you'll build confidence and you'll start like looking for it, and you'll say to your friends, oh, that's plantain. Not only can you eat those leaves, but if you get a wound, you can put it on your wound, and they're going to look at you funny, but they're going to be like, I'm going to remember that guy, because if things get really bad, he's going to be a good resource.
Yeah, you get invited on every camping trip from now on. So
Yeah.
it's a mixed thing. Nene is wondering, by the way, great channel. Check out Nene's Prepping Kitchen. Could you store flour in Mylar 5-gallon buckets for longer storage?
So if we're talking about the processed flour, that will buy you a little bit more time if you seal it in the Mylar containers. You can freeze it if you've got the freezer space. Most preppers are probably using their freezer space for other things than flour, but you could. That will probably extend it a couple months. I asked my wife this question the other day, and she said that if you had it like stored up and frozen, a year is probably tops that she would trust. And that would only be for like us. We probably wouldn't sell products made with that. Like I would have no problem eating it myself,
Yeah,
but for the stuff that we're selling, it's fresh.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Abitibi in British Columbia, is it time to build a bunker yet and fill it with prep items? Oh, that's a big question.
It's a fun project. It's extremely expensive. I do not have a bunker. I probably will never build a bunker personally. We got some problems here with I'm in Charleston, so we're like at sea level. It would be pretty hard to do it here. If you dig down enough, you're going to hit the ocean. So what I plan to do at some point though is to get myself I'm literally in the outskirts of the city, right? So I don't have a ton of space to work with. There's always people around. Sometimes it becomes a problem when I'm trying to film. So I plan to at some point buy something a little bit more away from the city, just a little bug out location that I would probably, you know, I'd probably put some perennial bushes and stuff that bear fruit and things like that. But for me personally, I'm not going to build a bunker. If you have the budget, it's definitely a fun project. I would like to see it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to see it too. And we have a certain amount of time here because we all have projects that we're working on. So we're just gonna chat and then we're gonna move on to our projects. And while we're here, I wanted to know about, the finance side of your channel. What are some of the things that you really think are the most important right now?
So when I talk about financial preparedness, there's a lot of debate that goes on in the prepping community about, well, stocks won't be worth anything when SHTF happens. Cryptocurrency won't be worth anything after an EMP. Silver and gold won't be worth anything because you can't eat gold. All of that is assuming like worst case scenarios. I am planning to retire. I hope to retire. I hope that none of that stuff ever happens. As a prepper, we think about it absolutely. And part of my preps are for like, what if we did have a long-term power outage? What if, God forbid, we have a war in the United States, like on our soil? I think about those things. I prep for those things, but I also am thinking about my retirement. And I'm also planning for things like recession, which we've been kind of stuck in, although they don't want to use that word. I've had a situation years ago where one of the programs I was working at got closed down, so I was out of work for a while. So that's when I talk about financial preparedness, I'm talking about those things too, not just like worst case scenarios, right?
Yeah.
So talking about the smaller situations, including inflation, right? So inflation is something where financial preparedness would come in handy. So what can you do? Well, I think everybody should be thinking about building up more than one stream of income for one thing. Side hustles are great. Have something that if your primary job suddenly is not available to you anymore, what's your backup? Do you have any money coming in? And so side hustles are good. Having some passive income coming in. So from this is hard in the beginning because this is one of those situations where it takes some money to make some money, but you can start small and start with like $5 a month going into something like Stash or Webull or Robinhood and pick stocks that give you back dividend income, right? So that's what passive income is. So just to explain that a little bit better, if nobody is aware of what I'm talking about, if you pick a company like say Coca-Cola, and you buy, you don't have to buy a full share, right? So Coca-Cola, I don't know, it's trading in like the $50 range or so. You could buy $5 worth of Coca-Cola stock with some of these programs. And then 4 times a year, Coca-Cola issues a dividend to its investors. So you may get, if you've only bought $5 worth of stock, you're probably only going to get like 5 cents back. But if you build it up over time, you keep putting a little bit of money in there, you put a little bit of money in there whenever you can. Maybe you do consistently, you're putting in $10 a week or whatever you can afford, and then buy numerous different companies that give back those stocks, those dividends. I pick companies that are all like Fortune 500 companies that have been around for 10 years or more. So they're not, they've survived recessions. They're probably going to survive what's going on right now. And then you get used to that money comes back in in the form of dividends. You'll get an email that says some dividends have hit your account. You can take them out if you need them. If you don't need it, just reinvest it. Buy some more of that stock or another stock that you like. So that's another way to be financially prepared. But the big one that I do probably the most on my channel is I like precious metals, silver and gold, and there's a lot of different things that you could do with that. People say, well, nobody would want to, if things were really bad, nobody's going to want to trade tomatoes for, an ounce of silver. I disagree. I grow tomatoes. If you bring me an ounce of silver, I will give you some tomatoes. I promise you, when SHTF happens, if you bring me some silver, I will teach you how to forage. I will show you where some of my foraging plants are. So if you think that there aren't people out there that would take that, there is, because every time a civilization has collapsed throughout history, something rises from the ashes of that, right? And precious metals for over 2,000 years has been one of the ways that people transfer wealth across civilizations, across country lines, across borders. It's an anonymous form of currency. You can take if you had pieces of gold right now and you were trying to get out of Ukraine, you could take those gold, hide them somewhere. You could swallow them if you had to. You could hide them in what people call the prison pocket. You could sew them into your clothes. I just didn't bring one with me, but like a 10th ounce of gold is about the size of a dime. So it's that small, and it's worth right now about $200 US. You could take that to anywhere in the world, any country in the world, go to the nearest city, and there's going to be either a jeweler or a coin shop that's going to be able to buy it from you in that currency. Yeah. So think about if you are in any kind of situation and you had to bug out of your place, your country, because things got that bad and you could go anywhere else in the world, you're immediately going to be able to convert to that new currency. So
yeah, and would you recommend, for example, we like the Mike Maloney Hidden Secrets of Money series on Gold Silver, goldsilver.com. You can see it on YouTube, and there's a whole series that talks about the basics of money as opposed to currency. Do you like Mike Maloney or any intro to what real money is that you recommend?
I am not familiar with him. I'm sorry. Jack Spirko is actually where I first started getting onto silver and gold, and so I've been stacking since 2009. Unlike other people, I typically I'm going to get some slack for this, but I don't recommend people store that much of it in your home because there's a pretty good chance somebody knows you've got it. So I keep most of mine in a bank vault. And other people say, Sarge, I wouldn't do that. I don't trust the banks. My grandmother, if she was alive, would say she doesn't trust the banks because she lived during the Great Depression. Everybody's got to make their own choice on what you do with it. I know somebody who buries it in their backyard,
Yeah.
But I personally feel better with it in the bank than in my house.
Yeah. And can I ask, how do you feel about the difference between the spot silver price right now and the physical price with premiums? Do you want to comment on that?
I sure will. And this is somewhere people are going to some people are going to disagree, but I think premiums are too high right now. I think this happened before in like 2009, I think it was, when silver shot up to about $40 an ounce. The more hype there is on metals, the more the dealers can inflate their premiums. Now, the other side of that is they're having to buy at an inflated price too. So they're just trying to stay in business. They're just trying to make their money. I hope that we get back to a point where I don't care if silver is at $40 an ounce or $20 an ounce, but when the premium is that much over spot, I don't like that, because I have to, the way that I think of it is, if I had to turn this around, if I had to sell it, I'm probably getting back spot price or maybe a little bit over spot price, right?
Yep.
So if they're charging 20% over spot, then I need that price to go up 20% to even be back in the black. That's how I think of it. Now, I'm also thinking long term, so I don't sweat it too much. My plan is, like I said, I plan to retire. I don't think that I'll ever have to sell it for like bugging out of the country. I don't think I'll ever have to sell it because we're in, another Great Depression. Could it happen? Sure. But I'm planning on that. That's part of my retirement, and I will, in my retirement, slowly sell off part of my stack piece by piece.
But if you did have to sneak out of the country, would you take it in a EDC fanny pack?
I definitely would.
Do you carry one?
I don't I don't usually, but I have it on today because I figured I might be getting pocket checked or fanny pack checked, especially after that urban prepper video. So yes,
Yeah,
I do have it on.
If anyone hasn't seen that video, maybe I'll link it below after. But Sarge was a star of the show. So can you show us what you've got if you have a minute?
I sure will. Right now, in my fanny pack, I have 3 things, and these are pretty much like you're always going to carry. You're always going to carry your pocket knife, right? So I've got the CRKT M21. I switch it up, but I like this one a lot. I've used this one for over 10 years, and it's really done great. But sometimes I carry other stuff. You always want to carry a flashlight. So for today, I've got the PowerTac Valor. And you always have to have a way to start fire. So I've got my Zippo with I changed out the insert because Zippo, the regular inserts, the classic inserts, it tends to evaporate the gas. So I got the arc insert there.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So that's my EDC for today.
Oh, very cool. I have one actually.
All right, let's see what you got.
I've got my fanny pack because I wouldn't want to hang out with you if I didn't have it. I'll just show you a couple of things. I've got a handheld radio here. Nice. I've got, what else have I got here? I've got a kilo of silver here.
Outstanding.
I've got a personal alarm here. Nice. I've got some fruit snacks. Cash. Cash is king. I love it. I've got a titanium whistle. Mm-hmm. Oh, geez. I've got a tactical pen.
I love it.
I've got a little bit of hair gel. I've got a couple of 1 ounce silver coins floating around. I've got a really small Olight flashlight, which is amazing.
Yep, you got to have those little mini pocket ones.
I've got a measure of time.
Is that for putting somebody in timeout?
Yeah, and I've got a bag of organic flaxseed.
Hang on now, you got all that in your fanny pack. Hang on.
Oh yeah. So that's just what I've got on me at this moment. So another question for you: what do you think new preppers should be focusing on?
Right now, supply chain issues is in the United States. That's the biggest issue. I am, of course, worried about what's going on in Ukraine. I really hope that doesn't trickle out to other areas. But right now, the most immediate thing we're all looking at is supply chain issues. We don't, of course, in the prepping community, we don't encourage anybody to go out and hoard. You don't have to go and fill your, 3 shopping carts full of toilet paper, right? But start doubling up on certain things, right? Like, so if you know that your family eats a box of minute rice every week, start getting 2 every week. If you know that you like a particular hair gel, go ahead and get a couple more. Go ahead and get a couple more and put it back. Yeah. anything that is like part of your day to day or week to week groceries, hygiene stuff, I would say if you can afford to, start doubling up. If you can't, then just do what you can. That's the thing, is we all have to work within our budget. So if if you think that groceries are going to be tough on your family, but you've got the space, maybe you can grow a garden, right? If you can't grow a garden because you're in an apartment, maybe you can learn like what are the wild edibles in your park, right? Um, and that stuff, as long as you're not near highways, things like that, as long as you're not like right near a factory that's dumping chemicals into the water, it's fine to eat as long as you've identified it correctly. Bring it home and wash it, of course. Run it under the faucet and wash it. But wild lettuce tastes awesome. Dewberries, somebody mentioned earlier, tastes awesome. We're going to be getting into mulberries soon. Wild asparagus right now is growing. If you're lucky enough to be able to find some of that, we're getting into mushroom season soon. So like down, they don't grow near me, but morels will be coming into season soon. Um, I'm lucky that I have a ton of chanterelles that grow, so those will be coming in the summertime. Like, figure out what's near you, and you can forage off of that. So then you're cutting down your food bill just a little bit, and also you're going to feel so good about that, that you've got that knowledge, right? Like, so once you find a spot of chanterelles, they're going to come back that time every year, right? If you find a spot of where morels grow, don't tell anybody. Seriously, do not tell anybody, because people hunt those things out. And like, there's been families that have had for several generations, that's their secret spot of where to find the morel mushrooms. So yeah, get out there, walk, hike, hit the trails. That's where I find most of my stuff, is just hiking trails.
So, should people be mushroom intimidated?
They need to be careful. They need to be careful. There's some mushrooms that are called things like destroying angel and death caps. so you do need to be careful. But don't be so afraid that you're not willing to learn. That's what I would tell people, because start with 3 that you can identify. Pick stuff and get really, really confident with it, so that if you find I don't know, purple dead nettle will be coming soon, right? So people might have that growing. And once you know what that is, like there's only one other plant that looks like purple dead nettle, and it's also edible. So it stands out. That's, if you're not familiar with it, it's usually grows in grassy areas and has like really pretty purple flowers on it. A lot of people, most of these things are weeds, so people try to get rid of them and they think like it's an obnoxious weed, but a lot of the weeds are edible.
Yep. And one more thing to ask you, what are you focusing on for 2022? Anything different, anything new?
I am planning to take up archery again. I've not shot a bow in years. I did do that in scouts, and I was decent at it. I have access to a park now that has an archery range that I can use. So every time I go hiking there, I watch everybody else using the archery range, and I'm like, yeah, I really want to do this. So that's gonna be a new skill for me. I just learned sprouting recently. Do you do that?
Uh,
Like
Sprouting?
you sprout in a jar
Oh
or
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah.
bag. Yeah, I had just
Yep.
learned how to do that recently, and that's super fun. And that's a good way for people with limited space too, to like have a little bit more food self-sufficiency, because you can store a ton of sprouting seeds, and if you need them, you've got it for your family, and they're packed with nutrition. They're really good. And if you don't, then just do them once in a while. You can put them on your salad or on your sandwiches. They're really good. But like for people in an apartment, you don't need to have sunlight for that. You don't need to have a lot of growing space. You really just need jars and some seeds and the know-how.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What are you preparing for in 2022, or are you learning any new
Well,
skills?
just shooting practice more. I used to do it a lot for work, and now I'm not doing it so much. So just those skills, and then we have really picked up indoor gardening because we've got outdoor stuff, but getting the indoor, like you're talking about sprouting and microgreens and just tweaking that. I just had a bunch of varieties ready to go, and they all look the same. So I planted different seeds, and they all turned out, they all look, they're, I can't distinguish between them. So that is one thing. And then identifying some of our spices, in this family working on vices. So, for example, we don't, drink alcohol anymore, or doing more exercise, just physical preps, because, that's important. And I mean, it's different for everybody, but just working on our own, like in this household, different things like more exercise, eating healthy, all that kind of stuff. And then
Excellent.
also, we've got a bit of a group, and looking, sort of helping the weaker links. And I don't mean the links are weak. I just mean weaknesses within the group, of ways that we can help out, deliver food, or help with different things to just sort of, help other people be prepared as well. And it does look like we have there's quite a few people in here. I just wanted to mention hello to the god darn bacon. By the way, if anyone has any questions for Sarge, now's your chance to get them in, because we are going to wrap up soon. Creative Redundancy is here. Hello, Earth Varieties. James, good to see you as always. And Senel over on the island. Thorhaven Farm is here, and I think he just put out a new video today, so I gotta check that out. Mosaic Master in Puerto Rico. Good to see you as always. It's so nice that you are here. And thanks, Harvey, for putting up all those links and stuff like that. So, there's such a discussion going on in there. So they're answering each other's questions. So, but yeah, I was gonna ask you, where can people find you if they want to engage more with your content?
So Prepping with Sarge on the YouTube, I drop videos there twice a week usually. Friday nights I try to do the Friday night prepper pre-party live stream, which is typically about 45 minutes or an hour. Bacon is one of my mods over there. He's my bouncer. And what we talk about on any given week, it can be anything from precious metals to gardening to foraging to sometimes current events. If I talk about current events, I try to mostly keep it focused on what can you do as a prepper in these situations. I'm not interested in having a political debate. I very rarely will even engage with that kind of stuff on my channel. I'm interested in skills-based focus. Let's get down to, it doesn't matter, where you're coming from, what part of the world you're coming from. Everybody here has a right to be prepared for emergencies. Everybody here has a right to survive. And so I'm all about, let's focus on the skills. Let's focus on, let's either talk about what you need to be doing, or I will show you what I know for you, to share the knowledge. So I also love going out on the trail and doing some videos from the trail, kind of like identifying plants, things like that. So there'll be more of that stuff coming, and occasionally hit on the other topics like that financial preparedness, talking about, like what new coins have come out and stuff like that. It's just for fun. Or the mental health piece of it too, which just like how are you going to deal with panic when panic sets in? What if you've survived something and you're now getting nightmares because of it? What if somebody in your group is having depression because of what's going on in the world? How do we handle that? So there is some basic stuff that you don't have to be a licensed therapist just to be helpful to people, right? And so we talk a little bit about that stuff too. Oh, yeah. And on Instagram, you asked where they can find me. Instagram, it's prepping_with_Sarge, and I drop new content on there pretty much every day, either like a picture or a message or a little foraging reel or something. There's always something coming out on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, especially on all of it, but in addition to the mental health piece, because that's a thing that this community really needs, is tips and tricks about that, because that's obviously so important. I think mental fortitude is the most important prep, personally. But so James is wondering, are you also on Rumble?
I'm not. I looked into that. At this point, I'm going to hold off. It's something that I probably down the road may have to consider. I don't think this platform has been really great for preppers. There's certain topics that it's just not going to be supported. So it is something I'll probably have to look at down the road. But right now, I'm not on Rumble. I'm not on Mew, I'm not on BitChute, and I'm not on TikTok. Down the road, who knows?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, well, that is great. I guess we will probably wrap it up now because I'm sure we all have some, prepping projects this weekend and stuff like that. So it looks like James is saying thank you.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's been really fun, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Van. And yeah, if you all want to look forward to, I'm going to try to get Van to come over to my channel for as a guest on one of my streams. So keep an eye out for that.
All right. Right on. Okay, bye for now, everyone. Thank you.